upon a time, there was a man named Okoro. Okoro was a successful businessman who lived in Amago with his two sons, Emenike and Eberechi. He was known as a classic grass-to-grace story all over the village of Amago. Okoro had told his sons and any other person who cared to listen the story of how he moved to Amago after his parents died of a mysterious disease when he was 15 years old. His education had come to an abrupt end because he could barely feed, not to mention afford to pay his fees. He had to move to Amago to live with his maternal uncle, Aingo. Aingo was a trader who dealt in clothes. He sold male and female clothing at the market in Amago, and his business was doing well. He agreed to have his nephew come live with him after his sister and her husband died mysteriously. Okoro joined his uncle and became his boy, his apprentice. The Iba boy apprenticeship system was one that required Okoro to serve Aingo for 7 years. During those 7 years, he worked tirelessly under Aingo's guidance, learning the intricacies of clothing trade. At first, he started with running errands and observing what Aingo did and how other boys attended to customers, but with time, he progressed to prospecting customers and attending to them without supervision. While Okoro was with Aingo, the business grew in leaps and bounds, bringing about expansion. Aingo opened more shops in the village market and put his most industrious boys in charge of them. Okoro was also in charge of a shop himself. 7 years flew by quickly, and Okoro's apprenticeship period was completed. His uncle Aingo called him to his obi one day alongside some friends and well-wishers and presented him with a reasonable sum of money. "Okoro, my son," he said, "you have proven yourself to be a worthy apprentice, doing what you should do at the right time. The money I give you is not just a reward for your dedication, service, and diligence, but a seed for your greatness. It will multiply in your hands and make you great." Everyone chorused. With tears in his eyes, Okoro received the money, thanked his uncle, and set off into the world to make a name for himself as a successful businessman. Years later, Okoro was now a successful businessman with 2 sons of his own who he was trying to teach the intricacies of his business. The younger son, Eberechi, showed his recklessness and lack of interest in his father's business in various ways. He would often skip work to sleep because he had spent the night partying with his friends. He also stole money from his father to lavish on gifts and expensive clothing. "Father, I need some money. I am broke." Eberechi would frequently ask his father without showing any willingness to work and earn it for himself. He was more interested in having a good time than in learning the skills necessary to build a business. In contrast, Emenike, his brother, showed his responsibility and hard work by always being present at the family business, eager to learn and take on new challenges. He would often stay back late to help his father with tasks such as balancing the books, managing inventory, and attending to customers or negotiating with the suppliers. He was diligent and thorough in his work, always striving to improve the business and make his father proud. He constantly looked out for ways to make his father's business better. While Eberechi was out squandering his father's money on frivolous things, Emenike was busy learning the tricks and tips of the business and proving himself to be a worthy successor. The contrast between the two brothers was stark, and their father could not help but feel a sense of pride and admiration for Emenike's responsible behavior, while also feeling concerned about Eberechi's lack of responsibility and interest in the family business. One day, Eberechi, driven by his own selfish desires and a sense of entitlement, approached his father Okoro with a bold request. "Father, I want to talk to you about something." He took a seat beside his father in the living room at home. He had a defiant look on his face. "I think I am grown and man enough to make decisions for myself and choose how I will live my life. I want my inheritance now. I have made plans on how to use it to do what I want." Eberechi's voice was laced with arrogance as he spoke. Okoro was taken aback by his son's audacity, but he tried to reason with him. "Eberechi, my son, you are not ready for such a responsibility," he said. His tone was gentle but firm. "Your inheritance is not just a sum of money, but a legacy that comes with great expectations and responsibilities. Are you sure you are ready to handle it?" Eberechi remained adamant. He had made up his mind, and no amount of reasoning could change it. "I know what I'm doing, father," he said, his eyes flashing with defiance. "Just give me what is mine and let me live my life the way I want to." Okoro, seeing the determination in his son's eyes, knew that further arguments would be useless. With a heavy heart, he reluctantly agreed to grant his son's request, hoping that he would eventually come to his senses and realize the errors of his ways. So Eberechi received his inheritance, and with it, the freedom to make his own choices for better or for worse. "Father, thank you so much. You will not regret this," Eberechi exclaimed, his eyes shining with excitement as he accepted the inheritance from his father. "I hope you use it wisely, my son," Okoro said, his voice filled with concern. "Remember that this is a gift, but it is also a responsibility. Don't waste it." "Don't worry, father. I know what I am doing," he said, already planning his next move. Eberechi moved to Alaeze, a city near Amago, where he would freely live as he wanted without his father's watchful eyes. He lived like a king, throwing lavish parties, wearing expensive clothes, and taking exotic trips. He was the life of the party, and everyone wanted to be his friend because of how freely he spent money. "Cheers to me, the richest guy in town," he would shout, raising his glass in a toast. As the months went by, Eberechi's wealth began to dwindle. He had neither started any business nor made any investments. He had spent his inheritance on everything except what truly mattered. He had no real friends, no meaningful relationships, and no sense of purpose. Before long, he found himself alone in an empty mansion, surrounded by empty bottles and broken dreams. He had wasted everything and had nothing left to show for it. "What have I done?" he cried out, tears streaming down his face. "Father, I have been really foolish. I have wasted everything you gave me." His father's words echoed in his heart as he thought, "I hope you use it wisely. Don't waste it." But it was too late now. The younger son had hit rock bottom and had no one to turn to but himself. Desperate to survive, Eberechi took any job he could find. At one time, he worked as a laborer on a poultry farm, feeding chicken and cleaning up after them. He worked so hard, whether in the sun or rain, just to make ends meet. No matter how hard Eberechi worked, he couldn't seem to get back on his feet. His salary was barely enough to cover his basic needs, and he often went to bed with an empty stomach. As the days turned into weeks, Eberechi's sufferings increased. He was exhausted, hungry, and humiliated. He had hit rock bottom and he knew it. One day, as Eberechi fed the chicken at the farm, he was so hungry that he considered eating some of the feed, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. He broke down and wept as he thought of the comfort he had in his father's house and how hard he had fallen. Eberechi came to his senses, realizing that he had been living foolishly and that he needed to make a change. "I will arise and go to my father," he said to himself. With a newfound determination, he left the farm with his few miserly belongings and set off on the long journey back to his father's house, deciding it was better to live as one of his father's boys than continue with the way he was living. He was ready to face whatever consequence came his way. Meanwhile, Emenike continued to work hard and help his father with the family business. He was even more diligent because he often thought to himself, "My brother has taken his share of our inheritance. Whatever is left is mine, so I have to work to build it diligently." As Eberechi approached the family house, Okoro saw him from a distance and ran to meet him. My son," he exclaimed. His voice was filled with joy and tears. Eberechi fell to his knees. "Father, I have wronged you greatly. I do not deserve to be called your son. Please regard me as one of your boys." His father wouldn't let him finish. He embraced him warmly. "Eberechi, my son, is home. You are home. I don't care about the past. I am just glad to have you home." Eberechi looked at his father in surprise. "I wasted everything you gave me. I don't deserve your forgiveness." The father smiled and said, "Eberechi, you are my son and I love you no matter what. Come, let us celebrate your return with a party." A party was held to celebrate the return of Eberechi, and the whole village was invited to the party. As they sat down to eat, Okoro poured some of the palm wine to the ground to make a prayer. May this be a new beginning for my son, who was lost but now is found. Ise, everyone said in unison. Eberechi was overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you, Father. Thank you so much. I will never take your love for granted again. All the while, Emenike was angry and fuming. He approached his father, his face stern with disapproval. What's all this, father? What are we celebrating? The fact that Eberechi squandered money after refusing counsel and came back looking like a beggar? Okoro put his hand on Emenike's shoulder to calm him down. Your brother came home because he had learned from his mistakes and is ready to start afresh. But he wasted his inheritance. We shouldn't be throwing a party for that, Emenike countered. His father's expression was gentle but firm. My son, your brother made a mistake, but he has taken responsibility for it. Eberechi is truly sorry and wants to make amends. That takes a lot of courage, and I am proud of him for that. Emenike crossed his hands, unconvinced. But what about everything he did wrong? Doesn't that count? Of course it does, but so does his repentance and willingness to change. I'm proud of you both, but today we celebrate redemption and second chances, Okoro said. Emenike looked at his brother, who was smiling and laughing with some guests at the party. He also saw the genuine joy in his father's eyes, and his heart softened. He realized he had judged his brother too harshly. I understand, father, he finally said as he joined the celebration. Okoro proudly said, that's my son. Welcome your brother with open arms. Emenike embraced his brother and said, welcome home, brother. I'm glad you are home. From that day onwards, Eberechi worked hard to regain his father's trust and respect. He learned the value of hard work and responsibility and became a valuable member of the family business. No matter how far we stray, we can always return home and find forgiveness and love.